Welcome to part 2 of the TripCom Super Bowl discussion. We have the Denver Broncos led by Peyton Manning and the NFL's #1 offense going against the Seattle Seahawks, Richard Sherman and LOB, the Legion of Boom, and the NFL's #1 rated defense. This has all the makings of perhaps one of the most epic Super Bowls we've ever seen.
Definitely.
And let's go ahead and finish up discussing. Obviously, we have our picks to go. I'm RJ, joined by KMAC and Justino, Justin. And let's go ahead and discuss this upcoming epic Super Bowl. Of course, the weather might interact with the game a little bit. That's going to be interesting. We were talking about the Denver's defense in part 1. They've definitely impressed us.
Yep.
And, of course, the Denver offense as well is extremely impressive. All those weapons. One thing I do want to start off by talking about is the Denver Bronco running back crew. We have Knowshon Moreno. Of course, this will be Knowshon on one side and Marshawn on the other. And another guy who's been impressing me a lot lately is Monty Ball. And one thing I think kind of helped them out in the long run, even though we didn't, as fantasy players, we were looking at Monty Ball in the preseason as somebody who could definitely, you know, be a big-time player this year, right? He really impressed us at Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, in college, he was unstoppable.
Yep, and he was a playmaker in college, right? He was making huge plays, but he had some fumble problems, so he got put on the back shelf. Ronnie Hillman got some play. They even used another guy, C.J. Anderson, and because of that, you know, like I said, it put Monty Ball just on the back burner. And now we look at it, it's the Super Bowl. The guy's playing pretty damn good, hasn't fumbled it at all. And you got to say he's probably pretty healthy because he hasn't played too much earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about it, he's probably going to fumble now.
I was thinking that.
But no, I mean, he's looking how he looked in college. He's starting to get that kind of like swag back about him. He's finally, I think, you know, when you fumble a lot, you come to the NFL, everyone tells you, oh, you need to stop fumbling or else you're going to get cut. Kind of fucks with your head a little bit. So I think, you know, he struggled right off the bat. He was still fumbling the ball, but lately he's just been a totally different running back. I don't know what John Fox did or who was talking to him, but he looks great now. So it's like Knowshon Moreno looks great, and you have Monty Ball looking great. Both those guys are amazing in college.
Well, you got Knowshon with the rib injury. So let's see how he's going to... I mean, we still have a week to go to the game.
Yeah.
But it could be a lingering thing, and they might need Monty Ball to step up, especially in the short passing game.
Well, they will because their offense is set to run first to set up the passing game. You know, and you think Peyton Manning, no, that's not true. Like, Peyton Manning, it's all pass. No, dude, it's their running game. They're going to run the ball 30 to 40 times in a game, all right? They're still going to get a lot of passes off, but they lead the league in average plays per game. They're getting like 73 plays off in a game, which is it's crazy because they don't really run a hurry up offense. So it's they have an efficient offense ran by the probably best quarterback of all time.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be big to see how that running game can go. That's why I brought up Monty Ball, is the fact that Knowshon, I think he'll be okay. I'm sure they'll probably give him some kind of pain relief, during the game, and I think he'll be okay.
He'll be so jacked up for the Super Bowl.
But that said, I think Monty Ball is going to have a huge role to play in the Super Bowl. And, the Seattle Seahawks, we know their defense is top-notch, but if there is a weakness, it's going to be their run defense. We're big Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans here. We saw the Buccaneers pretty much handle the Seahawks. They lost the game, but they ran all over the Seahawks defense.
Probably 21 points in the first half, didn't they?
Yep, exactly. Our backup running back, Mike James, was running all over them. And we weren't the only team. There was a couple other teams that were able to really run on Seattle. Frank Gore managed to do it in a couple different situations there. So if there's going to be one aspect of the Seattle defense that can be exploited, other than the fact that Peyton Manning's a Terminator and he can probably do it himself, is going to be the Seattle Seahawks run defense. Can Monty Ball and Knowshon Moreno get something going? Knowshon's been a little bit... lately I feel like he's been getting some injuries quietly. Nobody's talking about it, but it's really put Monty Ball in more of a feature role, and that's going to come to the forefront here in the Super Bowl. So, that's pretty much everything to do there with the Denver offense. Wes Welker made it back to the Super Bowl. He got double concussed recently, so going against the Seahawks defense, that's going to be some
kind
hard
of forgetting probably the most important piece of this offense.
Who's that?
This offensive line. You know, the offensive line doesn't get no love, but the offensive line is keeping Peyton Manning up and playing a whole season. I mean, no one thought that. Like, you're thinking, all right, he's probably going to get injured here, banged up. Dude, he's not getting touched. He's having the time of his life out there all season long. So this offensive line, has to be, they got to be with it, man. Peyton Manning's doing so much shit behind him. They have to know exactly what he's doing, what he's talking about, know where guys are lining up. They're talking to each other while it's loud as fuck. I mean, these guys do a lot, man. And they're next to the defensive lineman. That's your toughest guys on your team. They're going at it. They're hitting somebody every single play. They're getting ran over from behind. These guys go through a lot, and I like Denver's offensive line a lot.
Absolutely, especially looking back last week. You know, so many people I heard were dogging on Chandler Jones because, you know, Chandler Jones was a beast through the regular season, and then we get to the Denver Bronco game where everybody's saying, oh, Chandler Jones needs to get in there and affect Peyton Manning. He did not. We didn't hear his name mentioned once. He was invisible that game. And I don't think that's completely to blame on Chandler Jones. I think that's just the Denver Bronco offensive line is that good, and Peyton Manning is that good. He's going to get the ball. You know, he's going to get the ball out when he has to. If he knows he has some time, that's when you're going to see the deeper passes. But if he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. He's going to check it off. That's what he does. So anything else you can think of on this? I mean, we brought up the offensive line. I think the Denver Bronco wide receiver core is extremely proven, and going against the Legion of Boom, that's going to be a huge test.
Yeah, well, I mean, this game also is going to come down to these two kickers as well. So you know they're going to be bouncing back and forth, man. It's a boxing match. That's what it's going to be. These kickers are big. You look at Denver lately, has not been able to put it in when they needed to. Obviously at the end of the game there they opened it up, but you know, the first half they just kept kicking field goal after field goal. That's kind of how they've been starting games off. You gotta have those field goals come through. We've seen it time and time again in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, both of these teams have two good kickers, so I think that's a point we have to raise is, you know, in this day and age, you need to have a good kicker to really come through in the Super Bowl. There's not too many Super Bowl champions that I can think of that don't have, you know, a skilled kicker that can pretty much make it from anywhere on the field, you know, at least in front of the 40-yard line, of course.
Who do you think has the advantage of the two? I mean, they're both solid, but I mean...
In my book, given that, you know, it's going to be a windy day, most likely, I give the nod to Prater. But I'm not doubting Hauschka at all, so I can't say too much about either.
I'd have to go with Hauschka. I mean, the conditions, you know, playing in Seattle in that open stadium, but it's raining there, you know, 300 days a year.
Yeah.
He's dealing with a lot worse. I mean, and the wind as well, you know, crawling through the stadium. So I think they're equally matched. They're both probably top 10 kickers in the league. So it's going to come down to kicks because, like Kyle was saying, both these teams have had trouble getting the ball into the end zone.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Another thing I want to mention on this game is it's going to come down, which we haven't talked about yet, is the turnover department. This is, I mean, we talked about Monty Ball with the fumbles, so if Monty Ball is going to be dependent, you know, on more because Shermanator's banged up.
Yeah.
He's got, I mean, you know it's going to be the back of his head. He can't fumble in the goddamn Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So on the same side of that, Marshawn Lynch, you only got 3 fumbles all year, but what the fuck did you do at the end of the game last week?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a miscommunication between him and Russell Wilson, but it was like, what the fuck happened here? Like, and I almost lost the game for him. So that is what's going to cut. It's what all these Super Bowls come down to that. I mean, who's going to have the first turnover? Who's going to have the second turnover? Who's going to bounce back off of it? And Seattle, they're so good at it. They're so good at coming off big plays. They get a turnover and then they score a big play.
Yeah.
That is what they're known for. Denver's got to play flawless in the turnover department.
Yeah, we definitely saw the Seattle Seahawks defense come through with some key turnovers. And as you mentioned, we're breaking down pretty much every aspect of the game, but that could all just turn out mute if Russell Wilson comes out and fumbles the ball twice and throws a pick, or Peyton Manning uncharacteristically throws some interceptions. It's a good defense he's going against, so it could happen. That's definitely something that we have to look at. Like you were saying, I don't know if we could tell who's going to get the more turnovers. I think the Seattle Seahawks defense definitely gets a slight edge just because they've done it all year. They're a great scoring defense, and they get some major turnovers.
But same time, if Peyton Manning gets pressure on him, all it takes is one of those where he drops back, his arm's coming back, and all of a sudden Chris Clemens comes around and smacks his hand when he throws it. And all of a sudden Richard Sherman's got an easy play in front of him and takes it to the house. You can see that happening, and that's those huge moments that's like, oh, shit. Like, Peyton Manning could already have 400 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in the game, and that happens. turns the whole game around. At that point, I mean, it's gonna be a brutal matchup. That's why last week, I wanted this to be the Super Bowl. I wanted this to be the game because I was like, all right, if Peyton Manning's gonna win, then I want Seattle to be the team he's gonna face.
All right, so we pretty much broke down the entire game now. Let's go ahead and move on to our picks. Oof. Jeez, this is going to be a tough game to pick.
Man.
Like I said, the #1 offense versus the #1 defense. You have Peyton Manning in that epic legacy going against a guy who I think we might not know. I don't think we realize how good he is in Russell Wilson. I think he's a guy in 10 years we're going to look back and realize, damn, he made a Super Bowl in his second year, and he's probably going to be a guy who I think is going to have a very good career. But going into it, Justino, what are you looking at for this game? Super Bowl, what is that, 38, I believe.
Super Bowl 48.
48, that's right. Failed that one.
Damn,
Seattle Seahawks, I know, fuck those things. Seattle Seahawks versus Denver Broncos. Who do you got?
All right, well, this is the 6th time in NFL history that a #1 offense, #1 defense have matched up. 4 out of those 5 defensive won.
Yep.
The Broncos are 0-3 with orange jerseys in the Super Bowl.
Oh, that trippy point.
I feel like that's almost a slight nod Peyton is throwing to the University of Tennessee. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
In the Super Bowl,
despite all that, despite all the superstition, I'm going with our boy Peyton Manning. He's going to win his 2nd Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I've followed the guy since he was at Tennessee. When I was a youngin', he was a youngin'. Watched him growing up. He's become the best quarterback in NFL history, bar none.
Yeah. I would argue with that, but that's for another day. I'm a Joe Montana guy myself, but that's for another time. Obviously, it's hard to complain against
like our
Peyton
prior
Manning.
discussion about how you think of him. Do you think about playing the game, or do you think about achievements with championships? I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion at another time because that's definitely a great talking point. But you got the Denver Broncos winning. If you had to pick one player who you think, besides Peyton Manning, I think he's the obvious Super Bowl MVP choice. Is there another player who you think's really going to come through big, whether it be a defensive or offensive player?
Like I said earlier, it's going to be the tight end. He's going to be hitting Julius Thomas down the middle.
Juice.
You're going to have all the great D-backs for the Seahawks covering Demarius and Welker and Decker and Caldwell. And, geez, I mean, it's just such an epic matchup that we can't wait another week. You wish you didn't have to wait 2 weeks for the game, but
I wish they played 2 weeks back to back.
Yeah, and one thing we got to point out with the Seahawk defense and them covering Julius Thomas is their main guy that they would normally have covering the tight ends is their linebacker KJ Wright, but he's injured, so they're going to have to go to Malcolm Smith in that situation. We saw Malcolm Smith shut down Vernon Davis last week. We'll see what he can do against Juice.
I don't see him playing it that way, though. I see Earl Thomas being on him the whole game. Yeah, it's what they did to Jimmy Graham. Shut down Jimmy Graham. Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas were beating the shit out of Jimmy Graham.
That's a massive matchup.
Exactly.
Battle of Titans.
I know. That's gonna be 2 guys who bring the pain, going against Juice, who can knock some guys out himself. So there's going to be some big hits in this game. It's a Super Bowl, man. These guys are going to go all out. They don't give a shit. You're there. You have to do everything you can do to win, So.
All right, let me throw in my pick here before we get to you, KMAC. Because I'm going to go with
I'm so undecided, man.
Well, think about it for a second. I'm going to go with Justin here. Obviously, I'm picking the Denver Broncos. I just feel like, as I heard a lot of people say, I hate to go with the cliche, but it really seems like it's Peyton Manning's year. It reminds me a lot of the whole Elway thing. But that said, the Seattle Seahawks also have a lot of juju going for them. I think it's going to come down to the very end. Like, no joke. I'm talking about, I think this is going to come down to the very end. I think basically Peyton Manning is going to have to win this on the final drive. And I don't think it's going to come down to a field goal. I don't think it's going to come down to, I think it's going to come down to a touchdown is basically what I'm getting at. I don't think it's going to come down to a turnover or anything like that. I think Peyton Manning is literally going to drive it on the final drive of the game and get a touchdown just because we've never really seen that happen.
Elway style, straight up Montana style.
I can't remember. Obviously, we've seen Montana do it, but it's hard to remember a time where Super Bowl came down to a touchdown drive. We've seen Tom Brady get some field goals thanks to Adam Vinatieri.
Crazy. There's almost every game the past 4 or 5 years, The Ravens and 49ers last year was a last-second play.
But I
meant the Steelers and the Cardinals was a last-second play.
Yeah.
But
I meant a touchdown. You're right. That I forgot about the Santonio Holmes.
The
Santonio Holmes was definitely a touchdown at the end. You're right. I'm mistaken there, but I just meant like, I don't know. I guess
I think that trend will continue. I totally agree with you.
I just see it happening. But you're right. Like you said, it has happened. I forgot about that Santonio Holmes touchdown. That's pretty much what I think is going to happen. I think Peyton Manning's going to have to earn this one at the end of the game. I think it's going to come down. And we saw Peyton Manning last week right out the gate. He came out and kind of had like a ball. It came on a shotgun, and he kind of fumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed that. And it kind of gave me that thought for a second that, you know, Peyton Manning's human. He's nervous as fuck out there. He's going against his arch nemesis, Tom Brady, and that is in his head. Yeah. And I think it's going to come down to Peyton Manning winning the game on the final drive, and it's going to be the same situation. We're going to be thinking that in his head, he's going to know that he has to come through clutch here. His whole legacy is on the line, and he might even have that play right off the bat where he almost fucks it up. But I think my call, Denver Broncos, I think Peyton Manning will come through in the end. I'm calling a dump-off touchdown with barely any time left to no Sean Moreno or Monty Ball, one of the running backs, for a touchdown. I'm calling it. I'm saying the Broncos win. I'm going to go with 35-28. That's my call. KMAC, what are you thinking?
I mean, you guys had to do this to me again. You guys both pick the same team. Make me feel like I got to go with Seattle. I really like Seattle in this game. I think Russell Wilson, this team is the #1 team in the league with creating big plays, either on offense or on defense. You got to have that in big games. You got to have big plays happen for you. You know, I think the offense is good enough to move against this defense. I think Marshawn Lynch has a chance to have a 100-yard game rushing, 2 touchdowns. I feel Russell Wilson can run for 50 to 70 yards against them. Also have about 200 yards passing against them. And he's not going to have a lot of stats, but he's gonna have that one play where all of a sudden you think he's sacked and he runs around and all of a sudden throws it downfield and Golden Tate's wide open. It's a touchdown. Denver's been known to let those plays happen.
Yeah.
So anyways, with all that said, I can't go against the Broncos.
I figured you would do that.
Come on, man! Like this is epic. It's already set to be. Like the Manning brothers are gonna be the ones to win, Super Bowls in the same stadium.
Yeah.
When Eli Manning won a Super Bowl, won it in Indy. Now you got
Lucas Oil Stadium.
Lucas Oil Stadium. Now you got Peyton Manning going to New York. He's going to win his, and he's going to win his second. Because you can't have Eli. Come on, Eli is going to show up his brother in Super Bowls. You can't have that happen. No. As a sports fan, I don't want to see that happen. That kind of hurts. Like, oh man. So, I mean, Peyton Manning's going to come up huge. I love the Demaryius Thomas, Richard Sherman matchup. I think they're going to go at him because I think they're going to get him. They're so good together. They can just keep running straight seam routes on them, and how Sherman is playing them, they can throw the ball and make a different play. Back shoulder route, they can hit that. They can go over the top. And, dude, Demaryius Thomas is going to go over the top of Sherman.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to happen.
No doubt.
Yep, and like I was saying earlier, I think Peyton Manning's definitely going to make a point of doing that.
Yep. I'm going Broncos all day, man.
Just beware of Cam Chancellor, man. I think Cam Chancellor's the playmaker. He's gonna be hitting some people. I see him getting a pick. I think he could get a pick 6. And Manning, that one season, Manning had how many pick 6s is just...
Yep, and I gotta say, it's a little bit scary that the three of us are picking the Broncos. Damn it!
I'm rooting for the.
This is
his
toughest challenge yet. The Terminator's toughest challenge yet. The Seahawks. If he can own them, I think he should just ride off from the sunset, call it a day.
On paper, Denver owns the Seattle. It's hands down. It's Denver.
Yep.
You think? I don't know, man. That
but the biggest stat that's really not a stat on paper people look at is that turnover ratio. Like how much better they are at getting turnovers and then making big plays off of turnovers. That is what's big in a game, and that's why you play the game to see who's the best team. You don't match it up on papers and stats and all that stuff.
All right, well, it's going to be an epic Super Bowl. Definitely
can't
wait to see this. Thank you guys for joining us at the TripComs Super Bowl preview and predictions. And apparently, according to us, the Denver Broncos will win the Super Bowl, so Denver, light it up. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.